Hi everyone, I'm Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Question the Narrative video, and today's topic is who or what is Satan? Growing up, I always thought of Satan as this devilish figure that you see here, and I certainly always thought of Satan as only being one particular being. So it came as a bit of a shock to me several years ago when I realized that Satan is not a proper noun. It's not someone's name. It is a title, and the word Satan simply means adversary. And it is a word that is used throughout the Bible for several different entities. And I just wanted to go over what some of those are today. The most well-known version of Satan that both Christians and non-Christians alike think of is the spirit Satan, the one that many people think of as being in the divine council, one of the Elohim or heavenly beings created by God. Now, many people believe that he is also Lucifer, although I have never actually specifically found anything in the Bible that says that Lucifer is Satan. And if you do have a verse for that I somehow missed, please leave a description, or not a description, a comment down in the comment section for me, because I'm curious about that. However, it was used for multiple spirits in the Bible, not just one, and one of the most well-known is that of Job. In Job 1, 6-12, it says, "Now there was a day when the sons of God," that would be the divine council, "came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, 'From where have you come?' Satan answered the Lord and said, 'From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it.' And the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil?' Then Satan answered the Lord and said, 'Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face.' And the Lord said to Satan, 'Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand.' So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord." Now, every time in the past that I have read that passage, I still always thought of this evil being that was somehow allowed to be in the presence of the divine council. But someone on another channel, I wish I could remember what channel it was, mentioned that if you actually take a look in the context of that passage, it doesn't really seem like he's an evil being. It seems that he is taking on the adversarial role, that's what the word Satan means, and that he is a part of the divine council, and he is simply playing the part of what an adversary would do, and that would be opposing someone. Now, I don't know if I have an opinion on it. I haven't really looked into it that much. But I just wanted to show you that there are differing opinions even on that aspect of the Elohim Satan, but that is only the first one. Let's get to the next. People also play adversarial roles in the Bible, and one of the most famous is when Jesus says to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of man." I decided to come over to Bible Hub because I don't like the word mindful. I think it really just screams New Age to me, so I don't particularly like the version that meme used. So I wanted to come over here in Matthew 16:23, and let's just read it in the context here anyway, because then we'll get a bigger picture of that. So it says, Peter took him aside, and it's talking about Jesus. He took Jesus aside. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. See, he's playing an adversarial role. "Far be it from you, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." But Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." So was Jesus saying that Peter was an evil being in this verse? No. Again, we need to remember that Satan means adversary, and that's what Peter was doing. He was opposing what Jesus said, and that was why Jesus said that to him. So we really need to be careful of not using Satan as a proper noun. And it, you know what? It doesn't help that the Bible, the verses in the Bible, they capitalize it, and I don't think that it should specifically be capitalized, but it's not really up to me, is it? So not only can spirits be the Satan in the Bible, but people can be as well. And so we know one example of that is Peter. And there are some people who actually believe that the high priest of the first century, the Jewish high priest, was who Satan was in the book of Revelation. And we will get to that soon. Not specifically the high priest, but the book of Revelation and the mention of the devil, who is Satan, being thrown into the lake of fire. That was really what got me into trying to figure all of this out, because I knew that Satan, again, is not just one being in the Bible. It can refer to any number of people or groups of people or singular people. But yes, the Jewish high priest of the first century is another idea for some people, that they believe that he is the Satan mentioned in the book of Revelation. Many months back, someone sent me a blog post that they had written, and I searched high and low because I know that I did not delete it, and I cannot find it anywhere, because I wanted to actually click on that and read through it, because it was very interesting, because the writer of that blog post made a very good case for, at least at some times, Satan can actually be the self. And yeah, I'm actually pretty mad that I can't find it. So if you are watching it and you are the one who sent me that blog post that you wrote, please send it back to me. I would love to talk about that on my channel sometime. But we're going to be going over some verses in a little while that talk about, or at least mention, Satan. And we're going to try to figure out maybe the context and what or who Satan could possibly be referring to. And it certainly does seem that the self could fit the mold in some cases. And the last example of a group of people or a system that could fall under the category of Satan would be Old Covenant Israel. And that is actually a growing idea. That's not the word I was looking for, but that's what I'm going to say. It's growing in popularity in who Satan was in the book of Revelation, just as I mentioned earlier, that some believe that it was the high priest of Old Covenant Israel. There are others who believe that the entire system of Old Covenant Israel is the Satan that is referred to in the book of Revelation. And, you know, there is a reason for that. So in Revelation chapter 18, verses, I'm just going to read 22 and 23 just for context. And this is in the Doom of Babylon. This is the section. So what we're reading about is Babylon. Now, there are many people who believe that Babylon is ancient Rome. I happen to believe that there is very, very, very strong evidence that Babylon is actually ancient Jerusalem, first century Jerusalem. And so if you think of it that way, it tells us, and the sound of harpists and musicians, of flute players and trumpeters will never ring out in you again, nor will any craftsman of any trade be found in you again, nor the sound of a millstone be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again, and the voices of a bride and bridegroom will never call out in you again. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, because all the nations were deceived by your sorcery. Okay, do you see that? All the nations were deceived by your sorcery. Now, and again, it's talking about Babylon, which is, again, I believe, first century Jerusalem. Then here, what does it say? In Revelation 20, verse 7, it says, "And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth." Now, I have to say that the first time that I found this correlation was on Zach Davis's channel. Now, this is his Satan's Little Season video. I'm pretty sure that this is where I actually heard of this idea for the first time, and it really made so much sense to me. So I will leave a link to his channel in the description box. But again, let's head back over here. So it says, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth. Deceive the nations. And again, in Revelation 18, what does it say Babylon did? All the nations were deceived by Babylon's sorcery. So some of you might be saying, but Shelley, that's Revelation 18, and Revelation 20 clearly comes after Revelation 18, so they can't be the same place. Well, I know that a lot of people take it chronologically. I happen to believe that Revelation 20 is actually a summary of things and is not yet another step in what some people might call the doomsday scenario. I don't look at it that way. I believe that Revelation 20 this is all talking about things that have already happened, or that even had happened up until that point. So then, taking it a step further, that Old Covenant Israel was the Satan referred to in the book of Revelation. Let's just read what it says in Revelation 20, verses 9 and 10. "And they marched across the broad expanse of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, into which the beast and the false prophet had already been thrown. There they will be tormented day and night forever and ever." If you think of Old Covenant Israel being the devil in this case, Old Covenant Israel did end in 70 AD. It perished. It was obliterated. Not only that, Jerusalem and the temple completely burned. So if you think of it in that way, it does seem to make sense. Now, I found a blog post that has, I think it's 23 verses, Bible verses about Satan. I believe there were 23 of them. And so we're just going to go over some of them, and I'm going to try to figure out the context of specifically if any of the things that we have been talking about today could fit in with this verse on who Satan was. Because again, I don't believe that it was just one particular being. 1 Corinthians 7:5 says, "Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control." Now, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm thinking that self would certainly fit as Satan in this verse. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just trying to explore different ideas. And that's what this channel is about. Just questioning things, asking questions, and seeing what we come up with. Now, 1 John 3:8, "The one who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work." Now, this one, I think that you can look at it in two ways. I think that you can certainly think of a spiritual Elohim aspect of the devil, because it says that he has been sinning from the beginning. And I'm thinking of the serpent in the garden. At the same time, though, I think that we can also, again, look at the devil as the self, too. And is it possible that that would fit in here as well? And so down here we have 2 Corinthians 11:3, and it's talking about the serpent again, which most people would definitely correlate to an Elohim in that case. Next is James 4:7, and it says, "Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." And to me, this is another case where self, again, may fit that verse. I'm not saying that it's 100% what it means, but I think one of the things that happens nowadays is that people like to blame Satan for bad things that happen. And they don't realize the extent of sin in people's lives and just how capable, unfortunately, people are of doing very, very evil things without some spiritual being behind them. So that's why when I'm thinking of this, yes, it could certainly be a spiritual being that it's speaking of, but I also do believe that it could very well be the self too, because unfortunately, especially nowadays, people don't like to take responsibility for things, and it can be easier, sometimes even a comfort, to think, oh, well, people can't possibly be that bad. There must be some sort of spiritual forces behind them. In some cases, maybe there are, but again, I think that people need to step back and realize that there are just people out there who are capable of doing very heinous things. So this one here, Matthew 16:23, this is just the one that we talked about earlier with Peter. Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." And now, obviously, I'm not going over all of the verses with you because there's 23 of them. We would be here for quite a while. I will leave a link in the description box for this, though. So Zechariah 3 verses 1-2 says, "Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right side to accuse him. The Lord said to Satan, 'The Lord rebuke you, Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this man a burning stick snatched from the fire?'" Now, at first glance, you would look at this and you would think, well, Satan is standing there before the angel of the Lord, so he must obviously be a part, at least, of the divine council, or an Elohim, to be able to be standing there with the angel of the Lord. But the writer of the blog that introduced me to the idea of the self actually used this as an example and said, is it possible that Satan, who is standing right next to Joshua to accuse him, could actually be his own self accusing him at that point? And I know that some of you are probably like, what? Because it's the first time that I ever heard that too. And it took me a while. But, I'm open to at least exploring things. And I just wanted to share it with you as well. 1 Peter 5:8-9. "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings." I think that in this case, again, we could be talking about a spiritual being, but we could also be talking about Old Covenant Israel, and the way that they were persecuting the Christians at that time. Next, I'm going to read Revelation 20, verses 1-6. "And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss, and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil, or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, and locked and sealed it over him, to keep him from deceiving the nations any more until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony about Jesus and because of the work of God. They had not worshipped the beast or its image, and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. So in this one, it's talking more specifically about Satan up here, where the angel seizes, who I believe is Jesus, seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. Shade Stone has a very, very good video on this binding of Satan and on the millennium. And I will leave a link in the description box to that one too, again, along with Zach Davis's video. I believe Zach Davis also has videos on the binding of Satan as well. But Shade Stone believes that the binding of Satan was actually during Jesus's ministry. And if you think of Old Covenant Israel as being the Satan in this aspect, if they were bound from persecuting, or at least from, because they were still persecuting, if they were bound from deceiving the nation so that Jesus could not get his ministry out and spread the gospel for that time period, then that could be considered the binding. Now, I know if you are someone who believes that the 1,000 years is literal, you're probably going to have a problem with that. I do not believe that the 1,000 years is literal. Shadestone does, again, he does a very good job of explaining all of that, so I'm going to leave that to him. But that is another idea that, again, the devil in this case could very well be Old Covenant Israel, which, again, it perished in first century Jerusalem. So I hope that you at least get the idea of all of the different possibilities there are of who or what Satan is throughout the Bible. And again, I'm going to leave a link, besides to those videos that I talked about, I'm going to leave a link to the verses that mention Satan in them, and you can take a look through them because I didn't go through all of them. I just wanted to introduce you to some ideas that I came across and found interesting, which is, that's what I like to do here. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to support my channel, I will leave a link in the description box to my channel membership, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.